Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to Graphicsly's first ever Clip Studio Paint workshop. We have partnered up with the amazing Webtoon team to share with you how to create Webtoon from start to finish. 6 artists will present across the 2-day event. Each artist will cover a different topic on Webtoon creation. We are excited to learn with you. I am your host for the session, Fahim Niaz. Before we start, we have some housekeeping items to go through. This session will be approximately 60 minutes long. Use the link in pinned message in chat to ask questions. Due to time constraints, not all questions will be answered. Please respect the presenters during the sessions and only self-promote and exchange social media info during commercials. All sessions will be uploaded to YouTube later on. This workshop is brought to you by Graphicsly, the official distributor of Clip Studio Paint in North America, South America, and Europe. We can't do this without our amazing sponsors, Clip Studio Paint, Webtoon, and Wacom. Clip Studio Paint is the leading app with all the features you need to create your comic series ready to be published on Webtoon Canvas. Webtoon is one of the largest digital comics platforms in the world. With over 75 million monthly readers, Webtoon Canvas is the side of our platform where any artist can post their webcomic. Wacom is the global leader in the pen display and tablet market for creative users. As a technology company, they provide cutting-edge digital ink solutions for a wide range of partners using and producing smartphones, tablets, and digital stationery. Today's third session is an expressive cast of characters presented by Graveweaver. Grave is the creator of the immensely popular series I'm the Grim Reaper. The series features a visually interesting cast, each so distinctive and unique. We are excited to have Grave talk about how she came up with these fascinating characters. Now, I'll pass the session on to Grave.
Oh, hi everybody! Say hello to my cat, Rourke. Hello, Rourke. I'm here to present to you today. Sorry, Rourke. I'll let you go. We are here today to learn about character design. Yeah. So let's get hype. Let's get ready. I have lots of stuff prepared for you, and let's do it. I'm gonna do my best. Alrighty. So some of you may know me. You may not know me. If you don't, I am the creator of I'm the Grim Reaper on Webtoon, which is a Webtoon original, and you can go read it on the app if you want to. Do whatever you want, follow your heart. And it is a story about a girl who is a Grim Reaper, and she's sentenced to the 9th level of hell, and to escape it, she must become that Grim, kill one sinner a day. So let's get so what am I talking to you about today? I'm talking to you about character. I guess that's what people remember my series for, designing characters, etc., etc. So I'm very happy to be able to talk. So let's go on and get to it. So first off, what is a Webtoon? What is a Webtoon? How do you create characters in the format of Webtoon, etc.? Webtoon is different than some other storytelling media. With Webtoon, when you have to be drawing, if you're a Webtoon original professional Webtoon artist like me, you have to draw so many panels per week, like crazy amounts of panels. So something like 80 panels a week. So you have to make sure that your characters are able to be drawn 80 times a week without you wanting to throw yourself off a cliff, right? So look at Scarlet. Look at our titular character, right? She has honestly a very simple design. She has her cloak, she has an X, she has her scarf. That's it. We're done. And that's basically the kind of mindset you want to go into Webtoon designing characters with. You want to make sure that you're making the most use of your space on your character by using as little as possible, right? Because think about it, right? If you add even one more detail onto your character, if that detail takes you an extra 5 minutes to draw on your character every single panel, That adds up to literal hours every single week, just adding this one detail onto your character. So you want to basically to simplify your characters as much as possible to create an effective character design. So let's look at some old characters I've done for series that are not Webtoon, and then we can look at my Webtoon characters to kind of cross compare, like why my old characters would not work in a Webtoon setting. So these are characters that I've drawn for like old projects, and they were characters I only had to draw once, and then maybe a couple times later if I want to do like a cool illustration, but I did not have to draw them like weekly over and over and over. So here's Brand, here's Cecil, here's Enoch, and Maya. So all these characters, as you can see, they all look like they were like designed by me because every person has their own sort of unique, they all have their own unique style. It's not like when we're drawing a character, it's not like if I'm drawing a character for, say, a video game, my style's going to change entirely. No, it's still going to be obviously the same design sense, right? But it's about using our space wisely. So as you can see with like this character right here, I would not put this character into a Webtoon. Because as you can see, there's aspects of her character that are just like you see this spot right here, this design. These are hand drawn. These are hand drawn. These are hand drawn. This is hand drawn. I would have to like draw this and stuff. This would take me an immense amount of time every single chapter just to put in these patterns, right? So if I was going to say, take this character and I was going to move her to Webtoon, I would just remove this stuff. I would remove this stuff. Get rid of that. Get rid of this here. I would probably remove all this, right? I would simplify her down a lot. Like this, I wouldn't need this here, etc., etc. Like we want to remove all of these like bits and baubles, and we want to leave the general silhouette there. We want to make it effective, right? Because to create an effective character design, you don't want to be over designing, especially in a Webtoon. You just want to be you want a strong base. Once you have that strong base, just accent that base a little bit, and then you can move from there. So we can go ahead and look at Enoch. This character is actually the precursor to Satan for my webcomic. You'll notice they have the same like color scheme. But this character would never work in a Webtoon because you can just see how detailed he is here. Like this stuff, oh my god, I would just die. Like this section right here would take me probably 20 minutes per panel. We're not doing that. So this is another character that you wouldn't want in a Webtoon. This one, I don't even need to talk about this. Look at this crap right here. Oh my god. Like, no, absolutely not. And then Brand is probably the least worst, but she has these tattoos right here that are just ridiculous. Like, you could draw an overlay and just paste it on every time, but like the things like this stuff, these details, it's a little much. So that's what not to do. Now let's go look at the characters I do have in my Webtoon, right? And you'll notice they all have the same design sense because I have a baseline that I always work with when I'm making my characters. So let's go ahead and just look at Scarlet. Let's look at our title character. So Scarlet, simple, easy. She's got this cloak. She's got her scarf. She's got the red X. That's it. She has some details on her coat, but I kind of needed the details on there because otherwise her design just seemed a little too plain because, you do want some personality accents onto there. You don't want to just give like a base coat and then just leave it at that because then it kind of like blends into every other coat that's ever been worn. But you want this, you want a design that is simple but effective, right? So here's Scarlet. And you'll notice too, I only use three colors, 4 including her skin here: black, white, red, and then her skin color. And that's something you're going to notice in a lot of the characters on the Grim Reaper: black, white, an additional color, and that's it. Some characters do have another color in them, but there's usually a reason for that. So like here's Brooke, here's the other Reaper. He is another simple design. Like he's got his gloves, he's got these bunny ears, and then sometimes he wears this cloak. When he wears the cloak, that's like the ultimate simplicity, right? But he doesn't wear the cloak very often because I don't put him in the cloak too often because Scarlet also has this long billowy cloak and I don't want their silhouettes to like match each other too much. But sometimes I'll put him in it if I feel like he's going to be fighting and moving a lot, so he isn't just like this like tube walking around. Right. So if you notice, Chase's old design deviates from my general design sense because he's wearing, like this blue coat and he has gray pants and stuff. He still matches the aura of the comic, but he's not does design the same way that the Reapers are. Why has he done this? Because he's normal. He's supposed to be our normal guy. I wanted him to stand out a little bit from the Reapers to be seen more as like, that you can tell that he's just like a normal dude. And that's why his silhouette also isn't crazy. Like Scarlet has this Scarlet silhouette. She has this triangle silhouette, right? Brooke has these up here. This is his identifying silhouette. Chase is just like, yeah, he's a tube. But it's intentional because he's supposed to be the normal guy in the cast. He doesn't have any powers and stuff like that. But of course, Chase does get redesigned. And in here, he gets designed more. He still has the additional colors, right? Because you can see he has gray in here. So I added some more colors in there to make him to still make him be like, he's not designed like the Reaper. He's designed like Chase the human, but he is designed more along the sense of how I would design a Reaper because he's been so integrated into the story at this point. I don't have to have him be like othered, and this is how I would design things. Also, side note, every single person has their own way of designing things. Every single person has their own preference, etc., etc. I'm just telling you mine. This is not instruction for you to follow. This is perspective. You are listening to my perspective, and you don't have to listen to anything I say and take it into your own work, but do listen to it and consider seeing how I think about things, right? Just a little side note. So now here, let's go ahead and look at the rest of the characters. So Liam, here he is. As you can see, Liam, he also has more colors than usual. His hair is green. Why? Because he's a normal guy. He has the same design idea as Chase. He's just a normal dude. And then we have the Archangel. The Archangels are designed with more white in their design. This is Celeste. Her design is just white. Her like secondary color is gray, so it's black, gray, and white. And then Bernadette. The Archangels are designed similarly, but they're allowed to have brighter designs, So now the question is, why did I choose to design all the characters in this way? Why do I limit it? Why do I limit it to red, white, black, and then just leave it like that? Well, the answer is simple. Because my comic is edgy, and I'm designing characters for my comic, right? I'm designing characters to fit into this setting I have already established. And that's what you're going to want to think about when you're creating your own comic, right? What is the aesthetic of your story? Like, if you're making a magical girl story, you're not going to put Scarlet in it. Like, she would stand out like a sore thumb. Now, there's also the side note I have to ask that it's not like a character like Scarlet wouldn't work in a magical girl story. It would just have to be, the story would have to be written around it. So it would be like just thinking of a story off the top of my head. Like if there was a 29-year-old office lady worker who's a magical girl on the side, right? There's a dichotomy, right, of these kind of characters, right? And the story would revolve around that. It would be like the humor of that. The story would have to acknowledge it and point it out, et cetera, et cetera. Or, there's infinite different ways that the story could work or could not work, right? But in that kind of way, if you're going with a dichotomy, usually it's created either for humor or to play it up on, right? Now, you probably aren't going to do that unless you're literally doing a story that would be like acknowledging a dichotomy between two different, like a contrasting character design, like a pink frilly girl in an emo world or something, right? And like the story centers around the humor of her being so optimistic in this evil world. You are probably not going to do that, right? So design your character for the world you have. My character is edgy. All my backgrounds are monochrome. The only colors in the backgrounds they're all grayscale, and sometimes there's red when they're in hell. These are all the colors I use, right? So I take that and I made characters to fit in this kind of world. Because if you over design your characters or you like don't fit in your characters into the right like setting, it's not going to seem cohesive, And that's an aim that I do when I create my stories. I want my world to seem cohesive. I want everything to seem like it has an aesthetic, Like people open up I'm the Grim Reaper and they expect the I'm the Grim Reaper aesthetic. And they I have this thing where I'll show you guys later. I made it. I might as well share it on the stream later. It'll help you guys understand. I have this thing called a Reaper Creator where people can also take my aesthetic ideas and create their own Reapers, right? Because all Reapers are going to have the same aesthetic through line. So that's how I create my characters, right? I take a setting and I design the characters for the setting, right? So always think about that when you're writing your own webtoon. What are you doing? Where's your setting? What colors are utilized? Is it like a warm fantasy with like lots of brown tones and characters are going to be dressed in like comfy Mori fashion with like nice scarves and layers and stuff? Do you have like a sexy sword fighting thing where people are hardly wearing any clothes and everything's tight and leather and stuff? Or do you have like this cutesy idol comic where everybody's wearing like very, very cutesy, young fashion with like lots of poofy skirts and stuff? Like, what are you going for? And once you have that, how are you going to build your characters, So like, here's another panel. This is a panel just with my characters together in the world. And notice that they fit, right? Like, these characters don't seem out of place. They're walking, like, obviously they seem like anime characters. Like, nobody walks around with this giant bow flowing around off the top of their head. But notice that they don't look weird next to each other. They look like they're all from the same comic. They look like they're from the same world, It's like if you plucked out Naruto and you placed him over Scarlet, things would be weird because he doesn't match my design sense. His outfit is orange and he has blue and he has this blonde hair and this, like, it's like, it would not work at all. So you got to make sure that your characters have this like cohesive era. So they all have these dark muted colors, except for the one color that pops out, and the background is black and white and muted, and it just, it just works. Yes. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and look at some other, let's go ahead and talk about how their personalities relate to their character designs, right? So here is this is Chase's mom, right? So when you're designing a character, like this is her nude design. I don't know if many people have seen it yet. I think it would be in a recent episode or not. When you are when you look at her, what do you think she is? Is she a skater? No. Is she a teacher? No. You can tell she's a boss. She does combat because she has like these gun holsters and stuff on her. Like, maybe like she's like, and because of her coat, like she has this big head honcho coat right here. So she's important, So this is also kind of when you're designing, it's like, what is the first thing you want your person to think of, like the viewer to think of when you're looking at the character, and you want to design around that, right? So, and you want to make sure that you like, a lot of times when I'm designing, I use a lot of shape language, right? So I gave her this big, oversized coat on purpose. This does not fit her, right? Look at the arms. The arms would like go down to here. Like, you cannot physically wear this as like a normal coat, right? Intentional, because we want the coat to appear oversized and big so she has a more commanding presence. And that was like, that's obviously a conscious thing I did to make sure that she seems like this leader that she is. She's a leader, she's in charge, you defer to her. She's an older character. She's an older character, so she has experience, right? She's an older character with a leader coat. She's the kind of person that you want to turn to figure out, what's going on here or there. And that's kind of how I designed this character. So you always want to be thinking of that. Because if I designed her with like this very demure expression, and then maybe if I gave her just like a dress or something, it's like, and then I put her as like, and then I put her in charge of like these organizations, you'd be like, this doesn't fit. This doesn't make sense. It's kind of weird. I would have to play it up for humor. It would be like, oh, this little, like if you put like a girl in a frilly dress or whatever in the charge of an organization, it would turn into a comedy. But I'm not making a comedy. I'm making a edgy thriller comic. So yeah. So like with Scarlet, let's go back to Scarlet. When I started making Scarlet, I wanted to make a character that could be the main character of the comic. She's red because red is the titular color of the comic. So red was reserved for her, right? Because I'm the Grim Reaper. I'm the Grim Reaper, you think of red and black and white. Or just red and black. Red's reserved for Scarlet. And then what else did I want? I wanted her to look like a Grim Reaper. So when you think of a Grim Reaper, you think of you think of a skeleton guy with a long coat and then a scythe, right? So I had to give her a scythe. She has a scythe. Her scythe is not in this reference. But here's her scythe. You can see it. I gave her a scythe. And then I had to give her a coat, And remember, when you're designing, right? When you design a coat like this long coat she's wearing, there's 50 different ways to draw this coat, right? I could have just drawn this coat if you look at her arms, right? If you look at her arms right here, I could have drawn this coat like this. I could have drawn this coat skinny, like skinny and flat, right? And I think that's how if you asked a normal person to draw a coat, they'd probably draw the arms hugging, skin tight arms hugging like that. But she has these poofy arms, right? She has these poofy arms that I utilize a lot in the comic. I think I have a panel right here. So as you can see, this is the best panel I could find really quickly, but her coat puffs up, right? I use their coat as a shape language to express her emotion and stuff like that. I give her a silhouette. I'm always thinking about silhouettes. What's a character going to look like if you just take their entire character and you just mask it and make them just completely just one solid color? What's their shape going to look like, right? So I made her coat poofy on purpose. It's poofy out here like this because I wanted to be able to use that shape language whenever I wanted. So if she's running somewhere, then the coat is just going to be flying behind her. If she's surprised, the coat's going to puff up, that kind of thing. And I didn't want it to just be flat. And there's a lot of different ways you could design a coat, right? When you're thinking of a coat, it's really good to free yourself from the constraints of the article of clothing you're thinking of. When I'm usually designing a character, I put down blobs. I put down blobs of shapes, right? So I'll put down a blob of shape for a character's head, and we have a triangle or something, and then I'm oh, okay, what could be this triangle? Oh, maybe it's a dress with pads on the shoulder or something like that. This is how I design my characters at first. I put down shapes and I block out colors, and at the end we're going to be designing a character on stream with you guys too. So look forward to that. I'll show you how I do it live. So that's basically what I was thinking of when I'm making Scarlet. I'm she's a Reaper. And also you can design your character around the personality. I think Scarlet's just kind of matched into place because she has this dry, sarcastic personality. It's kind of the product of the world she's in. She black, red, white. It's always going to look edgy. She's edgy. It just kind of fit into that, right? With Brooke, right? The very first thing when I designed Brooke, by the way, Brooke is the oldest character in here. I designed this guy 5 years ago, something like that, for a really old story, but I liked his silhouette so much that I just kept using him. So with Brooke, right, obviously his ears are his main design element, right? He's a bunny. I wanted him to reflect a bunny. Why? Because it's fun. It's a easy design element. A lot of people wonder, I have Reapers. All the Reapers have an animal in them. And people ask, why? Why do the Reapers have an animal in them? It's why don't the Reapers just make eye contact with the sinners and the sinners just drop over dead, right? Why do they have to kill them with weapons? Because it's cool. That's it. They have animals in it because it's cool. It gives imagery. It helps you design. It's an assistant point, it's just funner, right? And sometimes you want to be thinking about that too in your comics. Sometimes you just want to add stuff for cool factor, because some people like cool factor. People like cool things, It's gonna be it's gonna help you with your character designs. So anyway, with Brooke, I just thought, he has these bunny ears, and the bunny ears on Brooke work the exact same way as Scarlet's coat. When Brooke's surprised, his ears go straight up. When he's sad or he's disappointed, his ears go down. When he's shocked, his ears go like this. You've all seen it in the comic, it always happens like that. It's his mood ring, And that's a lot of times that I like to do is I will carry a character's emotion onto their clothing because we're working in a 2D environment. You can do that, You don't want them to just be surprised with their eyes open. You want them to be surprised and their hair's up and they're shocked and the ears are up and the clothing is poofy, you know, or when they're sad, you don't want them to just be sad. You want them to be really sad, and their hair is down here, and their clothing's sagging. You know, it's because you can do that. So you utilize when you're in the initial factor of designing your character. Think about what aspects you can use in that character to be carrying over when you're drawing your comic, you know, because these aren't characters just meant to be looked at once and be like, oh, that's a nice design. They're meant to be used. These characters are your tools to make your comic with. They are your palette for expressing your story. So make sure you give yourself good tools to work with, you know? Sorry, Brooke, that I called you a tool. But anyway, so with Brooke, as you can see, he has these ears, and the rest of him is like, I gave him this poofy shirt. Like, once again, going back to the idea, if I told someone to draw a t-shirt on a character, they would probably draw like this, right? They would probably draw something like this on a character, you know? Because that's what you think of when you think of a t-shirt, right? So release yourself from the constraints of a t-shirt and instead draw a shape, you know? I drew a poofy shape because he can poof up. It poofs up a lot. When you see him jumping around in the comic, his shirt's just flying everywhere, and it's creating lots of interesting silhouettes and movement and that kind of stuff. So I think about that a lot. And the same with like he has these like suspenders for that same reason, to have them fly around and create interesting shapes and things like that. So that's why I gave him that. Any more interesting thing? Chase is boring. He doesn't do anything. Oh yeah, with Chase, right? So his initial design, intentionally, I just made him a detective. The most interesting thing he has is this cross right here. Which I put in there intentionally for like imagery. But other than that, and his red glasses are about the coolest thing, right? And his new design I used because he now is more than just like a detective. He's now a part of the cast. He's intertwined with like these Reapers stories and stuff like that. I designed him, you know, more closely to a Reaper, right? And he also gets the same design philosophy as Scarlet and Brooke at this point, because Brooke is designed after a bunny, Scarlet's like designed after a Reaper. Her animal is a wolf, and I try to carry that with her like teeth and stuff. Chase has always had cat imagery, so I decided, okay, we're gonna give him some cat imagery. So now he has a tail, and if you read the comic, his tail is his mood ring, right? When he's surprised, the tail goes like this. When he's when he's running, the tail is out behind him and stuff. His tail is like Brooke's ears and Scarlet's coat. You know, they're the tool I have to express his emotion, you know? And the same thing with this thing. This also poofs up. When he's surprised, this poofs up more. And then when he's sad, it kind of sags down and stuff. Like that's his shape imagery and stuff, you know? So yeah, those that. So now we know how I design characters. And sorry, I'm not talking too much in the depth of the personality stuff. I think I'm more strong at the physical design. And the personality just kinds of comes afterwards. So now that I have shown you all these characters, how they work, my design philosophy, let's design a Reaper right now. Let's do it. Let me open up. I had this template, so I might as well tell you. Clip Studio Paint. If you ever need to do just a quick draft sketch, throw down a 3D model. Throw down a 3D model and trace it. Like, just do it, because we're doing drafts, right? And in a draft, the importance of the draft here is the character idea. So I don't have to sit here and just think about, oh my God, let's get the anatomy right, let's get the proportions right. Let's start out a 3D model. Clip Studio Paint. You can do that easy. There's 3D models in the program. A+, great. So I did that. That's why I just left that there. So let's go. Let's have our goofy looking sketch, right? So here is a sketch open. So I made this yesterday, and I didn't intend to include this in the presentation, but I think this could be a really good helper to our presentation. So, introducing the Reaper Creator. I made a Reaper Creator last year, and it went over well, so I remade it this year for the 2nd anniversary of I'm the Grim Reaper. And this is the design philosophy behind Reapers. If you follow this, you can make Reapers like I do. So basically, as you can see, every single Reaper has a main color. They have a demon shape. They have a weapon, and then this isn't really that important to the design. And then they have demon control. The demon control is important to the design. So let's go ahead and let's do this for me. So I was born on the 28th. So we're gonna go with fuchsia. My demon, my first initial, G for grave. Where's G? G. So there's a crow, and then Weaver, gauntlets. And then level of hell. Okay, 8th level. That's just for flavor though. It's not really for design. And demon control. I was born at 2 p.m. So we have average demon control. So we're gonna go ahead and take this and we're gonna make a character. So we have a fuchsia, crow, demon with gauntlets. Cool. So here's our thing. So we're just gonna remember this, and then I have to write down that we have a crow, gauntlets. I wonder what I could do with that. Okay, gauntlets. Gauntlets is the most interesting point for me because you can make them like big and stuff. But we'll see. We'll get to that. Crow, gauntlets, and then normal. All right. So this, let me show you how I spitball character designs, right? So the very first thing that I think of when I look at this is that I want to, so like when we're making a character, a Reaper, right? We have like these 3 colors to work with. And also limiting yourself forcefully to having to follow certain guidelines will help you a lot. Usually, like when I give myself a certain limit, this is why art prompts are so popular, right? Because art prompt, in theory, limits you because when you're told draw something snowy, right? Suddenly you're limited because you could have drawn any other weather that you wanted in time of your own. But sometimes people like to be narrowed down because then it gives the challenge of working within a constraint, and sometimes that increases your creativity. You know, so that's why I have these like constraints here. So we have crow, gauntlets, normal, etc., etc. So the first thing I think of is when I'm designing, I'm like, our main color. Where can we block our main color to be visually interesting, right? And the first thing that I think of is that I want the legs. Like this character can have like kites. They can have kites on. That's just our main color. So let's go ahead and just fill this in. And this is color blocking. It's not going to look good. It's not going to look pretty. We are experimenting with the color, the blocks of color and the blocks of the design. So let's go ahead and block this in. Block it in, block it in. Boop, 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 boop. Big purple legs. Okay, and then I guess I'll just put them like pants or something. But right now I imagine these as tights on this character. So we have our purple legs, right? And we also remember we have crow and gauntlets. So when you're what I'm thinking of right now is because tights are very form fitting. They will echo the shape of the leg pretty perfectly. We want to contrast the bottom half of the character to the top half and have them be wearing like really baggy clothing. So I'm gonna give them like I want this big shape. So let's go ahead and give them like, I think this could just be like a baggy coat or something. But right now I'm just filling in a shape, right? Get out of here. So we have the character with this big top. Yeah. So I'm thinking of this is definitely just going to be like a baggy coat or something. So something like that. And the reason I'm thinking we can give them like this coat is because we have a crow, right? So we kind of want to echo a crow. So I'm thinking if they lift their arms out, then the jacket will just continue to stretch out like this, right? So they can echo sort of like a crow. So let's go ahead and just erase this arm so we can have we can just keep that there to remind ourselves what the silhouette is. So like this character, this would be the character's emotional throughput, right? If they're surprised, they can throw their arms up and they have this big, this big, shadow that they give with their coat, and then when they're sad, they can come in and they shrink down or stuff like that, and when they're surprised, it can poof up again. So that's what I would be doing. And then I guess a hairstyle, I don't know. What's a crow? I guess we could have a hairstyle that maybe kind of reflected, like it reflects feathers or something. Let's have it just be like, I guess, poofy.
Hi there, Grave.
Like oh, yes. Hi.
We have a question that seems to be very popular on the chat, and you had a prompt that you were using for this character. People would
Yeah.
like to see you bring it up again so they can check it out.
Oh, I'm gonna post it on my social medias afterwards. So
Okay,
you guys
perfect.
can check me out on the social medias afterwards. I don't want to spoil it too much on here.
All right.
Yeah, that's the Reaper creator that there's an old one that I posted before a long time ago, but this is the new one. If you want to take another sneak peek at it, you can look at it right here. But I'm going to be posting it later on my social medias. And the reason I don't want you to look too much into it right now is because there's like 4 more slides that go with it to explain everything. So right now, if I like bring it up, it might seem confusing. So yes, but yes, thank you for giving me the question. Appreciate it. So go ahead and give this character like this spiky hair, because when I think of a crow, like they have feathers, they're feathery, and feathers kind of like poof out. So let's echo this character's hair with this spiky. So yeah, let's have that. And then so now we have like this character, like their main silhouette. Oh, I'm back. Okay. So we have their like I should just merge it all together. So we have their like main silhouette going on here. And now what's bugging me is that this coat is to do this. So let's go ahead and go in and let's like draw the panels, I guess, that would be in this coat, because I want to see them in there. And then let's go ahead and draw more panels. Let's do like this. This coat would be like that. And then we would have the characters like hand like that. So we have these this thing. Do more panels in the jacket to make the jacket look more jackety, because right now it's bugging me how much like a blob it looked like. So yeah, we have this. Okay. And then also every Reaper has to have like an X on them. So we'll go ahead and give this character like maybe X buttons for these. I'm not sure. Where would I put this? Maybe they could have an X right here, just like as like a decoration, like a clasp. It can be a clasp on their jacket. Something like this can be, yeah, sure. Let's do that. And also the purple. A thing I do, a cheat I do a lot that you guys are free to steal. Is with my characters, when I want more color, I will just put color on the underside of like their clothing. So you can see right here, there's orange on the other side of his clothing. You get more orange in this character. Brooke too. Chase, the inside of Chase's coat is blue, but you can't see it. Brooke, you can see right here, the underside of his coat is pink. I do that a lot because it's more visually interesting to have like a different color under, So I'll go ahead and try to express that right here. So the inside of this character's jacket will be this purple color. Yeah. Yeah. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so we have that. Okay, she's not wearing any shoes. We can just give her let's give her like so it's very, like I said right here, we're working with a very like form-fitting design. So let's give her like some chunky shoes. Let's give her some chunky freaking like sneakers or something. So let's just go ahead and throw those on. She can have like a decoration there. So let's go ahead and do this. So there we go. So now we have this character because the legs are very skinny, but we want contrast in design. Contrast is always very interesting. So we have contrast in the character, the thinness of the legs, and the chunkiness of the shoes, right? So here's what we have so far. Honestly, I would usually probably leave it at this, but let's go ahead. So that maybe the hair goes down more like this. How do I fill this out without destroying my canvas? Okay, that worked. Okay, but we still have to do the gauntlet. How am I going to do this? I was thinking she could have just like big chonking gauntlets, but maybe something like, whew, those are big. Those are big. She has something like this. That could be cool if she put them on, but usually the characters don't have their weapons out, so she would just be like that normally. So if she had her weapons out, she would probably have these like chonky gauntlets that are like they would have like purple designs on them and stuff and like be super cool. But right now we're just leaving them as blobs because designing a gauntlet that would have to be some other time. So it'd be something like that. So here would be our main character, right? Oh, and because she has control over the demon, she would not have very big horns. She would just have normal sized horns. So she could just have like, I don't know. Oop. So that's Scarlet horns. Let's do like you wouldn't even be able to tell their horns because they blend in with her hair. Do something like that. And then she would have a tail, but with a lot of the characters, their tail is just in their clothing. Because otherwise it's too much. So yeah, we could add maybe some more maybe accents to the character, maybe, or maybe we can have buttons like this, something like that. And then maybe a bit more chunky. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, and then she'd have purple eyes, and then yep. And just like that, this is a new Grim Reaper. I have just made a character with the Reaper creator, and this is what the character would look like. And as you can see, it follows my design philosophy. It's pretty simple once you just start chunking down. Once you just start chunking down colors, it's actually pretty easy. Once you chunk down the colors, then think about what would fit into that shape, right? You know, when I just put that giant blob on the top half of her body, I was just thinking, I need a blob up here, right? But then once I started drawing it, it kind of naturally formed into like a big jacket. And then with her tights, you know, it just happens that tights happen to be a color that matches the exact same skinniness of a leg. And then shoes, I needed something big on her feet, bigger, so I just gave her those big freaking shoes that you always see anime girls wearing, just giant freaking shoes. And then her hair, you know, she's a crow, so I decided, okay, crows kind of, you know, they're feathery. When they're poofy, when they're angry, their feathers kind of pop out. So yeah, so here we go. It's 1, 2, 3. Once you have like a specific way you design things, it's really easy to just knock it out like that. So, yes, I'm done. Question time, I guess. Woohoo!
Awesome. We have quite a few questions here. I apologize.
Woo!
Some of them may be things that you've covered already, but I'm sure a lot of people would get value if you covered some of that stuff over again. But here's the first one. How would you implement patterns and outfits that can be distinct but easily repeatable for multiple panels?
Oh, okay. So, like the first Archangel Celeste here, as you can see, her legs are like this like lace pattern. It's just an overlay. I draw a layer, and then I color in her legs in every single pattern, and then you just clip this lace pattern over it. Look on if you're using Clip Studio Paint. We're in the Clip Studio Paint workshop. You better be using it. Look into the assets store and look for repeating patterns. And like, so her legs are like one example of it. And then I also have, where is he? I don't think I brought him up. I have Liam, not Liam, Judah. He has this pattern on the underside of his clothing. This is also I just overlay and repeat it. And generally, if you can overlay, if it's a pattern, you can overlay and it not look unnatural, then you can use it. But you have to be like, you know, kind of careful with what you use. So yes.
Okay, perfect. This question is related to color. How do you play around with color when creating a character? And there's another similar question to it. How do you choose your colors? I think they're very similar in nature.
So with I'm the Grim Reaper, it's super easy, like I said, because I have this limit I put on myself: black, white, and additional color. So when I'm making an I'm the Grim Reaper character, it's literally as easy as going to the color wheel and just picking a third color, and then done. We're done. But if I'm designing outside of it, generally you just like kind of play around with colors that aren't going to interfere with each other. Like you usually only want maybe one saturated color, and then you can use other colors as long as they're desaturated. But generally, I'm the Grim Reaper, and even in most of my character designs now, I limit myself because this is just proven to be the method that works for me. It's kind of like my MO. and it works out. But obviously, if you're designing a character for like a high fantasy, this method will probably not work because then they have like belts and they have like potions on their thing, and you know what? Good luck with that because I don't got any idea. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. How do you make a simple character, but at the same time, a remarkable character? Like how how do you make a character that the audience remembers?
So your audience all people they are consistently overloaded and undulated with visual information at all times, right? So what are people going to remember? They're going to remember things that are simple but striking, right? So all my characters are very simple silhouettes and stuff like that, but we want them to have an interesting overall form to like, you know, to look at. So just keep your shapes. Don't go over the top with your shapes. Like if we took this character, right? We took this character and then I gave her like we had like spikes. Like I was like, oh, she's a raven, so let's give her spikes here, you know? And then let's give her like a wing right here too, and a wing here too. Let's give her 2 wings. And then let's also give her like a raven tail over here. And then let's also give her I don't know, a halo. She's not an angel, but her halo's black because she's mean. And then let's give her claws, you know? Like, okay, this character, the more you add, the less memorable this character becomes because now you're overloading the audience with too much visual information. You want to keep it just keep it less is more. And utilizing your colors, utilize as little as possible in the best way you can. Don't aim for a character design that has a lot of stuff, but all the stuff is utilized like 5 out of 10. Aim for a character design that has 3 aspects, and all of those aspects are 10 out of 10. And that's what your audience will remember because there's so many characters all the time, everywhere. And the things that are just done well and are easy for all of our human brains to consume is going to be like what people remember, what's memorable. Because think about it, what characters are the most iconic and memorable in like general culture? Mickey Mouse. Don't kill me, Disney, for saying Mickey Mouse. Pikachu. Mario. Sonic the Hedgehog. These are all extremely simple character designs with simple shapes, right? And if you want to like borrow that, you should borrow. I borrow it. I try to make things as simple as possible, and I like look at like the ideas of like mascots and stuff and how they are just relegated to a few shapes and colors, and I try to carry that over to my character design. Because people's brains, you can only hold so much information. So you just want to give them something that is simple, but nice and easy to chew. Yeah.
All right. And would you say that that also applies to preventing characters from clashing with one another when it comes to colors that are used on each of the characters? Like, for instance, a very colorful character versus a darker character being in the same scene?
Yeah, so when all your characters are together in a setting, like I mentioned before inside the lesson, you kind of want to have this sort of like design them similar, so they all look like they come out of this similar world, right? Because if you have Sailor Moon standing next to Kratos from God of War, right? You're like, what? Like that, like you immediately, if you saw this in a story, you'd immediately think this is a comedy, and it would be very difficult to escape from the constraints of comedy because it would just be so funny seeing this very detailed, grizzled, dirty man and this magical happy girl in the same thing. So you want to, like with Kratos, right? If you look and taking God of War, for example, if you look in God of War, all the characters are designed to be more mature. They're dirty. They're all from the same time aesthetic period and stuff. And in Sailor Moon, all the characters are designed modern, and all the Sailor Scouts have like the same outfit. Maybe looking at Madoka Magica would be better because they have different outfits. All the magical girls have the same. They have different outfits, but they're all cutesy. You know, they have frills, bows. They have like buttons and stuff, right? So it's like if you had a magical girl that came out and she was wearing like these very chunky boots and a leather jacket and she had like spikes coming out of her shoulders, like that would be cool, but it wouldn't really look like it fitted, you know? So just make sure you're using the same you're designing, you're looking like if it's a historical thing, same time period. If you're like I always utilize modern fashion inside my design. So I'm not going to give any of my characters like a toga, unless they're archangels. The archangels have a different bit of a design sense. They're allowed to have more. Like formal or classical looking attire. Like Azrael, as Azrael's wearing this like sort of priesty outfit with a boob window, right? So he has I did that intentionally because the archangels are more like upstanding and like they're ancient sort of like creatures and stuff. So that's like always like when you're designing things, make sure that you're like thinking of like your own like the set time period and stuff. And using also the same like color, like are you using dirty colors? Are you using bright happy colors? Are you using neutrals? All that kind of stuff. So just try kind of do what I did here in this like creator. If you want to make constraints for yourself and then design within those constraints. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. How can I design a good character using simple clothes? I think they're looking for hints on designing clothes.
Okay, so designing a good character with simple clothes, delete the idea of clothing from your mind and take your character and do what I did here and just put shapes on them, put blobs of color on them, see where the blobs work, see what makes an interesting blob. And then once you have your interesting blob, then see what you can replace the blobs with. Like, you know, if we're having let's do another blob. So let's say here's a Scarlet blob. So Scarlet, she's got this, right? And I'm like, okay, she needs a triangle. She needs a triangle, and I want her to have like big sleeves, right? So right now, when you just look at this shape, it looks like a really crappily drawn angel that I would have done in first grade, right? But if you use your professional knowledge and your adult brain, you can be like, oh, okay, I can turn this into a coat. You know, I can turn this into a coat. This can be the underside of the coat, and then this obviously will be like shoes and stuff, and then this will be a hood, and then we have this, and then we have Scarlet, you know. And then from there you would like design the rest of the character because you're like, oh, it's a coat, so then you know there would be the inside of the coat, you know, and then you just design from there. So like release yourself from the constraints of mortality and don't think about things like shirts, pants, etc. Think about blocks of color. Think about blocks of color shaping in areas. Work from that, and that'll help you because you're simplifying it. You know, you're going from simple to more and more complex. And with this blocking thing, a lot of times you'll be worried, oh, what if I can't find a piece of clothing to match whatever block I have? You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. You know, even if you have a block, even if you have your character and you have like your character like this, and you're like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to have I don't know, have like a big triangle here or something like that. Maybe you can have your character like you can have them be an angel and their halo is literally a triangle behind them, right? And they can just have a triangle wherever they go, right? It's like it's not always if you have it also obviously depends on the constraints of what you're working with, right? But like with something like that, like if you're working a fantastical thing, you can work with it. With if you're designing normally and you have a triangle, then I would put just like your character can have like a triangle hat or something. Like, but you know, it's trial and error. Not every single silhouette you put down is going to be a hit. In fact, whenever I design a character, I usually have like 10, and then I pick one, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go with this because the rest of them were kind of weird. So anyway, yeah.
All right. What would you say is the hardest part about writing and drawing out a webtoon? I imagine how hard it'd be to keep both beautiful art and coherent writing.
What's the hardest part? Meeting my deadline. I think the hardest part is the story I'm telling. What I want to fit into a chapter, I cannot physically draw that much in a week. So I have to take a lot of shortcuts to get the writing out. Because to me, writing is king, and a webtoon writing is king. Like the design stuff is all cool, but when you're making a webtoon, you can have the most beautiful art in the world, but if your story doesn't hit, then you're going to be limited in the amount of people who are going to read it, even if it looks beautiful. Because if they want to see beautiful art, they'll go Google beautiful art. We're on Webtoon because we want to read stories. So I make a lot of sacrifices with art to be able to tell my story. And that's how I'd say that's the most difficult part, because I'm like, I'll draft out, like, I'll have a story and I'll have like 2 paragraphs worth of shit I need to fit into, like, if I was doing it like normally, like 40 to 60 panels, right? But I'm like, no way I'll fit it into 60 panels. So then I have to do 110 panels, right? But it's like, I have to do this in a week, right? So then I have to hire help, and then I have to do this and that, and there's like, to do a webtoon also, there's way more stuff than just doing the webtoon. Once you become like a webtoon original, doing a webtoon is 50% of your work. The other 50% of your work is just all kinds of other stuff that just happens to pop up. Like this lecture thing I'm doing right now, or like I have a merch store, or then there's lots of other stuff Webtoon has me do. Webtoon had me do a panel like 2 weeks ago. There's just a lot of other stuff that comes up. So being a Webtoon artist is definitely the hardest thing is time management. And no, when you're doing a Webtoon, you will make sacrifices. If you're prioritizing your story and stuff, it depends on what you prioritize. You will be making sacrifices. I mean, if you prioritize art, which I think that's fine if you want to do an art that's a webtoon that's really beautiful, but you're going to have to make sacrifices on the writing front, because you can't, with webtoon, everything is about compromise. Every single thing in webtoon is about compromising what you're going to be able to do in 1 week, because you do not have a year to make this chapter. You have 7 days. The timer starts when the chapter goes up. You have 7 days to completely do everything, and you do it every single week for years, okay? So, and sometimes you're not going to be on the ball, and you just have to figure it out. Sometimes you're going to have a off week where you just can't get it out. You're just going to have to figure it out. So the hardest part is definitely compromising with your story. I don't know if I answered that question correctly. I already forgot what the question was, but hopefully that worked out. Yeah.
No, that's great. You definitely answered a ton of other questions as well in that answer. Here's another question. What if a character design looks too similar to somebody else's character? What to do then?
Oh, that always happens. Okay. If you're not doing it intentionally, like people, every single like time I introduce a new character, there'll be people adding me and being like, did you take inspiration from story I've never heard before in my life? And it's like, no, I've never even seen this character. I don't even know. Like people just constantly ask me this. And the point is that there's only so many colors the eye can perceive, so many types of clothing, so many shapes. And here's the thing too, you're actively working against human nature if you're trying to creating characters that aren't similar to other people. Humans are genetically engineered to find patterns in nature, because that's how we survived as cavemen, because we would see a berry here and it was red and it killed Bobby in the tribe. And so you see another berry that's red and you're like, oh, Unga, no, eat berry. Bobby dead, berry, red berry, kill Bobby. So you see this pattern and you notice the red berries everywhere you go. It's pattern recognition, right? Obviously, we don't need to go outside and eat berries out of the dirt anymore, but we do still have this tendency in our brain to recognize patterns, and then it crosses over into things we don't need to recognize patterns in, but we do anyway, such as characters. And so people are always going to see your character as a similarity to another character, even if you never intended it. So unless a character is like overtly similar in like a very specific way, like say you made a character that's a Reaper and they also have an X on their chest, then maybe consider changing the X to a different symbol, because not so much that like, I don't think unless you were like, unless their name was like Barlet and then they were like they were like the same outfit except they were blue or something, and then you started like selling merch or something and copying my story, that would irritate me. But generally it wouldn't bug me if I saw like a character that was similarly designed to mine. I'd just be like, oh, inspiration, cool, whatever. But if it bugs you, then because you will, if you have a character that's similar to another character, you will get endless comments about it, whether you intend to or not. So it's up to you if you want to change that character or not. But if you did somehow astronomically manage to make a character that looks like a 1-for-1 copy of a different character, then maybe change a couple aspects of it. But otherwise, don't overthink it, because no matter how hard you try, your character will look like Sasuke from Naruto. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Any tips on how to practice character design, like daily exercises?
Just design characters. I design lots and lots of characters. Like I have a whole folder somewhere. Let me see if I can bring up my folder. Where here, these are all like characters I've made for like stories in my past. I just design character and design. Just design them. There's nothing really special you have to do. Just design them, and then when something works out, remember how that worked out. Like Brooke was done. Brooke is a character. I don't know if he's in this folder. He's not in this folder, I don't think. Brooke, the one with the bunny ears. Where is he? Brooke. Yeah, this guy. He was designed, like I said, 6 years ago. And I liked his bunny ear design. So I just reused him, and I reused that silhouette because that silhouette worked really well. And I found a thing that worked. So just design. You're going to have hits and you're going to have misses. Let me show you one of my misses of my first time. All right. His name, ironically, is Reaper. This is bad. This is a bad design. I will save you guys the judgment. You can look at it. It's terrible. He has gold, shiny tattoos. He has pants that unzip from the middle. He's not wearing shoes. His hair is awful. He has a maple story leaf in his hair, and he has these marks on his face. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just shooting the shit and trying to see what stuck. And to be fair, none of it stuck. So sometimes you just have to make bad designs. But here's the thing, making bad designs sometimes is really, really useful, because now I made that design and I was like, I'm never using a single aspect of that design ever again in my life. And I learned to avoid all those things. So yeah, just design. Oh, and also as for what helped me with all these characters were in stories I made. And the character designs that had the best designs, people would tell me they had good designs. If characters had not so good designs, usually people wouldn't say it to you, but they wouldn't pay as much attention to that character, or they wouldn't draw that character as much. And so that's a really good gauge. So put it out there and gauge how people react to it. And then you can kind of get the feel of what's vibing with the audience and what's not. So yeah.
All right, thank you. We're at the top of the hour. We'll ask a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap it up if that's all right with everybody. We still have tons of questions that we won't be able to answer, so hopefully we'll archive those questions and pass them on to Grave, and if she has time, she'll look at them. If not, then maybe we can catch her someplace else in the future, maybe in another session. So this goes back to some of the stuff that you talked about at the beginning of the session. What would be your first step in designing a character when you've done your research and your plot's ready? How would you know it's done and unique?
My first step in designing a character after my plot's ready. So a lot of times, I think there's two prongs to this question, so I'll get to both of them. A lot of times, you learn what your story's aesthetic is by making the story. I'm the Grim Reaper got to chapter 17 on Webtoon Canvas before it got picked up as an original, and during those 17 chapters, I was learning what the aesthetic was the entire time. So sometimes you just need to throw out some drafts out there, and you're gonna keep. This is why a lot of times, if any of you guys read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, one thing that happens inside every arc is that the characters at the beginning have very, very different personalities than the characters at the end, than they are at the end. And that's because Araki, the author, hasn't really figured out how to write the characters yet, because he's just spitballing on the canvas as he's going. That'll happen to you too. Your characters will be different. They'll evolve, they'll change. The aesthetic of your world will evolve and change. You'll figure out symbols at work. You'll be in one chapter, maybe you're going to draw your character is going to a chess match, and then you're like, wow, this chess aesthetic works really well with my story. Then you're going to start putting it in, right? But you didn't have that chess aesthetic for the first 7 chapters, so you're like, oh shit, what do I do? As you draw your story, you're going to learn. So I always think the best thing to do is just have a draft, start drafting your story, do some draft chapters, draft it out. It really helped that I was able to get to chapter 17 and I'm the Grim Reaper, and then redo it from the beginning with my new knowledge. That really, really helped me figure out a solid aesthetic and stuff. And once you have all that down, because you're only going to learn about yourself, you're going to learn about yourself by putting your ideas onto the page and seeing what works and doesn't work. And once you have that, once you go from there, I won't know. I won't know when you're ready. Only you're going to know when you're ready. But the thing I can say is when you're designing characters, just keep it as simple as possible. Simple, simple, simple. Because if you overwhelm yourself, if you're like, oh, I have a character and he's he's going to have potions everywhere, and he's going to have this healing book, and he's going to also have glasses, and then he's going to have these goggles on his head, and he's also going to have wings and stuff. Don't do that. Just think, I want my character to have a cross on their design somewhere, right? And then put that cross on and design everything else around the cross, right? I look at Brooke, I wanted him to have bunny ears. So I put these, that's a very big brush. I put these bunny ears on him. Everything else was designed around the bunny ears. That was the very first step. And then everything else was designed around that. And it's the same for all the other characters. With this character, I wanted these lace tights. That's all I wanted. And then the rest of her was designed around those tights. Bernadette, I wanted her to have this part right here, this collar cuff sort of thing with the cross, and then everything else was designed around that. Yeah, that's it's you're gonna find what works for you. It's different for everyone, but this is what works for me. So yeah.
All right, we're on to the last question. Do you find yourself stuck on how to move the plot of your comic? If so, what do you do to move the plot in a natural way?
No, because I wrote the plot from start to finish before I started the comic. So if you are someone who writes on the fly, that is a thing you will face, being stuck, right? And some people like writing like that, and I think that's a valid way to write. Like I said, Araki from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I'm pretty sure he writes like that, and everyone loves his work. But you'll have to battle with certain things, not knowing where to go and stuff like that. With me, I wrote not like the plot like super detailed from start to finish. I have big bullet points of every single big event that's happening till the very end. So I never got too far off path, right? Maybe when I'm doing, I'll stray a little bit, but then I would be forced to get back on track by my outline, right? So it's like, let's go into the path of the comic, right? So I would have Scarlet becomes a Reaper, Scarlet kills Jordan, Scarlet meets Chase, Scarlet kills the first sinner, and then learns that the nature of sin. Scarlet goes to the Red Spades hideout, meets Brooke. Like we have these plot points, right? And it just keeps going. So Scarlet meets Brooke. Scarlet loses control of her demon. Scarlet stabs Chase. Scarlet heals Chase. Scarlet, they go back to the Red Spades. Brooke joins the team. You know, I have these bullet points, and they're all written out. And I never stray. They've all been the same. Well, I've shifted some around a little bit. Like there was a major character I was going to have in the story, and I just removed her because I was like, I can't add another story. I can't add another character. I want every single character in this story to be well fleshed out. I don't want to ever put in a character that's going to feel just tacked on, right? So I took a character out and then I filled in some blocks. But I think that's the biggest change I made in my story from the beginning. So I have all these bullet points. So I would recommend, if you want to follow my method, is that write your story from start to finish with these bullet points. So you will never fall too far off the beaten path, right? But if you are getting stuck, the best advice I can give you is ask a friend. Talk to your friend, someone who reads your comic, someone who reads your plot. Maybe if you can't find anyone, hire an editor, look online and hire them, give them money. And then they're forced to care about your story. So I have an editor. My editor helps me sometimes in the past when I would be stuck in small points. Like I knew I had to get to a different bullet point, but I was like, how do I get to this bullet point in a way that doesn't seem like shit? I would discuss it with him, and then he would give me like a suggestion. I'd be like, oh, good suggestion. I'd carry it out. So talk with someone. Talking will help, and sometimes you don't even need to get advice from them. Sometimes just talking out loud, you'll come up with a story. You'll come up with a way to do it. Just like getting your thoughts out and forcing your brain to process everything will give you ideas. Just naturally through the fact that like when you're sitting alone thinking about it, you're processing information in a different way than when you're trying to communicate it to someone. And sometimes when you're trying to communicate it to someone, the little hamster wheel in your head will just suddenly go a little bit faster, and you'll figure it out, and your two brain cells will connect, and you'll be like, oh my god, wait, this is how I could get from point A to point B now that I'm describing it to you because I'm trying to make you understand it, right? So I basically say, write ahead of time. If you don't want to write ahead of time, if you want to do the winging thing, which is fine, that could be a very fun way of writing a story. Talk to people if you're ever stuck. So utilize the resources around you, your friends, and yeah, or take a lot of showers. When I'm stuck or I can't think of something, I will just take like 5 showers and then I'll think of it in the shower. So that's my method. Anyway, yeah, woohoo! Last question.
That's some awesome advice. Before we get off here, Grave, do you have any words of wisdom, last things to say, or share anything?
Oh, words of wisdom. Making a webtoon is freaking hard, okay? Go easy on yourself. Your art will look bad in panels. Your writing will waver and stuff. You're gonna have panels that are cringe, that are gonna shift and stuff. But doesn't matter, because what you're doing is you're trying to create an overall cohesive narrative. And even if you have like these low points in your story, you're gonna have high points, and you're trying to get to the high points, and you're creating an entire big story. So don't fixate too much on this panel. The arm looks wonky here. You know, it doesn't matter, because the character is the audience isn't reading your story to see how you draw arms. The character is reading your story for the story. So hang in there. It's hard. We're all suffering together. The best way to kind of like coping with being a webtoon artist is get into the community. I know Webtoon Canvas has a Discord. Get in there, talk with fellow creators, get advice. Always sometimes I feel like things are difficult and it's hard because people are like I don't know, just sending me message after message about you made a typo in this battle and my 50 cents on my fast pass and now I'm gonna call my bank. You get that. I get stressed out and I just go talk to my friends and then everything's fine. So utilize support systems, talk to people, and remember, go easy on yourself because making a webtoon is probably a sign that you are literally off your rocker. There are no sane people on this planet that choose to make webtoons. So go easy on yourself because you're doing one of the hardest possible things that a creative person can do. So yeah, but also keep it up because it's also extremely rewarding and telling stories is poggers. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you so much, Grave. That was awesome. Love the words of inspiration at the end there. And thank you so much for taking the time for all this good stuff. And I certainly learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else learned a ton too. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Oh.
All right, guys. Before we go, don't forget to follow Graveweaver and check out her webtoon. I'm the Grim Reaper. Stick around for a special giveaway. You will find the link in the chat and you can enter the giveaway throughout the commercial break. For more details, check out the giveaway link and let the moderator know if you have any questions. That's a wrap for the presentation portion of day 1 of our Webtoon workshop. But make sure to stick around in the chat for the giveaway. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. PDT, we will have Siegel to present how to create environments for your series. She's prepared so many cool tips, so don't miss out. We hope to see you for tomorrow's sessions. Take care and see you soon.